Ethan, you've got me hooked on how you feel, sliding into me like a promise I can't resist.
Tiffany breathed, her tone thick with desire as we lost ourselves in the sheets. I thought this risky, intoxicating game we played could stretch on, a hidden fuck you to the man who ruled our world. But then that day landed. My father, Richard, caught us, and he didn't just know. He delivered a punishment so ruthless it crushed us. What did he do to destroy us? Keep reading to uncover the chaos, and subscribe to catch more jaw-dropping stories like this. The next few days were a tightrope walk over a pit of fire. Richard's ultimatum hung over me like a guillotine. Move out, take the job, or lose everything. He'd already had his assistant drop off keys to some sterile downtown apartment, a leash in the shape of a lease. But Tiffany and I, we weren't slowing down. If anything, his push to control me only fueled us more. Every time he turned his back, we were on each other. Her sneaking into my room at night, me pinning her against the wall in the garage when he was on a call. Our hands and mouths mapping out a rebellion he'd never see coming. One afternoon, he was holed up in his office, barking at some poor sap over the phone about a merger gone sideways. Tiffany caught me in the kitchen, her hair pulled back in a messy bun, wearing a cropped tank and leggings that showed off every line of her body. She didn't say a word, just grabbed my wrist and pulled me into the pantry, the door clicking shut behind us. "We've got 10 minutes, she whispered, her lips brushing my ear as she pressed herself against me, her hands already tugging at my belt. I didn't argue. I lifted her onto a shelf, canned goods rattling as I shoved her leggings down, her thighs parting for me like an invitation I couldn't refuse. She bit her lip to stifle a moan as I slid into her, quick and hard. The thrill of getting caught making it sharper, hotter. We were a mess of muffled gasps and desperate thrusts, her nails digging into my back as she came, pulling me over the edge with her. We barely had time to fix our clothes before his footsteps echoed down the hall. But the smirk she flashed me as we slipped out said it all. Worth it. That night, she texted me from their bedroom. "Meet me by the pool, 1 a.m. Richard was passed out, probably from the scotch he downed after dinner, so I crept downstairs, the house dark and silent. She was waiting, barefoot in a sheer white cover-up over a black bikini, the moonlight glinting off her skin. "Couldn't sleep," she said, her voice low and teasing as she stepped closer, peeling the cover-up off and letting it drop. I didn't waste time, pulled her into the water with me, the cool splash a shock against the heat between us. Her bikini top was gone in seconds, her breasts pressed against my chest as we kissed, slow and deep, the water lapping around us. I backed her against the pool wall, her legs wrapping around me, and we moved together, the ripples hiding the sounds of her gasps, my groans. It was reckless, stupid, perfect. But the high couldn't last. The next morning, Richard called me into his office. First time in days he'd bothered to look at me twice. He was behind his desk, papers stacked like a fortress, his face unreadable. "You're packed yet?" he asked, his tone clipped. "Yeah, almost," I lied, leaning against the doorframe, trying to keep my cool. He stared at me, too long, his eyes narrowing. "Something's off with you," he said, tapping a pen against the desk. "And Tiffany's been distracted. You wouldn't know anything about that, would you?" My stomach lurched, but I shrugged, playing dumb. "Nope. Maybe she's just bored of you." It was a gamble, and his jaw tightened, but he let it drop, waving me off. "Get out, and don't screw this up, Ethan. I'm done cleaning up your messes." I walked out, heart pounding, and found Tiffany in the hall, pretending to fuss with a vase. "What did he say?" she whispered, her eyes wide. "He's sniffing around," I said, keeping my voice low. "We need to be careful, or we need to move faster." She nodded, her hand brushing mine, a spark in the chaos. "Tonight," she said. "We figure it out. All of it." I didn't know if she meant the plan to ditch him or just us, but either way, I was in. Too deep to turn back, too hooked to care. That night, with Richard at another late meeting, we met in my room. She locked the door, her movements sharp, urgent. "I've been thinking," she said, pacing, her voice trembling with something new, fear, maybe, or resolve. We can't keep this up here. He's going to catch on, and when he does, she trailed off, but I knew. He'd destroy us. Her prenup was ironclad, and I'd be out on the street with nothing. So what's the play? I asked, pulling her to me, needing her close. She looked up, her eyes fierce. We take what we can and run. He's got cash stashed in the safe. Hundreds of thousands. I know the code. We grab it, disappear, start over somewhere he can't touch us. My breath caught. Stealing from Richard? It was insane. Suicide, maybe. But the thought of it, of us tearing his world apart and walking away together, lit something in me. You're serious, I said, searching her face. Dead serious, she shot back, kissing me hard, her hands fisting in my shirt. I want you, Ethan, not him, not this cage, just us. I kissed her back, the decision made in the heat of her mouth on mine. Then we do it, I said. Tomorrow, before he figures it out. The clock was ticking now. Richard's shadow closing in. Our plan, a live wire ready to spark. We'd either get out with everything or lose it all in the blaze. One way or another, tomorrow would change everything. We stood there in my room, the locked door a flimsy shield against the storm brewing outside it. Tiffany's kiss still burned on my lips, her words, "Take what we can and run," echoing in my skull like a war drum. Stealing from Richard wasn't just bold, it was a death wish. That safe in his office held more than cash. It was his pride, his power, a vault of secrets he'd kill to protect. But the fire in her eyes, the way she pressed herself against me, made it feel like we could pull it off, like we had to. Tell me everything, I said, my voice low, my hands gripping her hips to keep her close. She pulled back just enough to meet my gaze, her breath uneven. It's behind the painting. The ugly one with the sailboat, she said, her fingers tracing my chest like she was mapping out the plan on my skin. Combinations 12, 28, 47. I saw him open it once, late at night when he thought I was asleep. Cash, bonds, some jewelry he keeps for emergencies. We're talking $500,000 easy. My mind raced. $500,000, enough to vanish, to build something new. Enough to make him hunt us to the ends of the earth. When? I asked, my pulse hammering. Tomorrow night, she said, her voice dropping to a whisper. He's got that gala downtown. Won't be back till after midnight. We'll have a window, but it's tight. One slip and... She didn't finish, but the unspoken hung heavy. One slip and we're dead. Not just cut off. Richard didn't forgive betrayal. He crushed it. We need a distraction, I said, thinking fast. Something to keep his staff off our backs. The mansion was a machine. Maids, drivers, security, all loyal to his paycheck. She nodded, her smirk returning. I'll handle it. Tell Maria the pool pump's acting up. She'll call maintenance, keep them busy out back. Front gates on auto after 10. No one will see us leave. It was coming together, but the weight of it pressed down. Every detail a potential tripwire. What about cameras? I asked, my hands sliding up her back, grounding myself in her heat. Disabled in his office, she said, leaning into me, her lips brushing my jaw. He's paranoid about anyone watching him count his money. We're clear there. I exhaled, relief mixing with the adrenaline pumping through me. Then it's set, I said. We grab it, get to the car, and we're gone. She kissed me again, fierce and possessive, her nails digging into my shoulders. Mexico, she murmured against my mouth. A beach, a bed, just us. The image, her in the sun, free, mine, lit me up, and I pulled her closer, losing myself in her until the world shrank to nothing but us. The next day was a slow burn of nerves. Richard was in tyrant mode, barking orders about the gala, his tuxedoed frame a storm cloud as he stormed around the house. Ethan, don't touch anything while I'm gone, he snapped at me in the hall, his eyes cold. And Tiffany, smile tonight, don't embarrass me. She played the part, all, yes, darling. But I caught the flicker of defiance in her glance my way. He left at 7, the Bentley's taillights disappearing down the drive, and the countdown began. I packed a duffel, clothes, cash I'd stashed, a fake ID I'd scored months ago for no reason I could name then. Now it felt like fate. At 9, Tiffany pulled her distraction. Maria, the head maid, was out by the pool, yelling into her phone about a leak, the maintenance crew scrambling. The house thinned out, staff distracted, just like she'd planned. By 10, it was go time. She met me in the hall, dressed in black, tight jeans, a hoodie, her hair tucked under a cap, but still so damn hot it hurt to look at her. "Ready?" she whispered, her hand slipping into mine. I nodded, my throat tight, and we moved, silent, fast, down the stairs to his office. The door was unlocked. Arrogant bastard didn't think anyone dare, and we slipped inside. The sailboat painting loomed on the wall, tacky as hell, and I yanked it back, exposing the safe. Tiffany's fingers flew over the dial. 12, 28, 47. Her breath hitching as it clicked open. Inside, stacks of cash, velvet pouches, a gleam of gold. "Holy shit," I muttered, shoving it into the duffel, my hands shaking. She grabbed a wad of bills, stuffing them in her bag, her eyes wild. "Faster," she hissed, and I did, adrenaline spiking as the seconds ticked by. Then, footsteps. Heavy, deliberate, coming down the hall. My heart stopped. "He's back," Tiffany whispered, her voice cracking, her face pale. "He's not supposed to be." The doorknob rattled, and I slammed the safe shut, swinging the painting back as she yanked me behind the desk. We crouched, her body pressed tight against mine, her breath ragged in my ear. The door creaked open and Richard's voice cut through the dark. "Where the hell's my phone?" Sharp, pissed, close. Too close. My hand clamped over Tiffany's mouth, her pulse racing under my fingers as his shadow loomed inches away. One wrong move, one sound, and we were done. The air in Richard's office turned to ice as his shadow stretched across the floor, his muttered curse, "Where the hell's my phone?" slicing through the silence like a blade. Tiffany's body trembled against mine behind the desk, her breath hot and shallow against my hand as I clamped it over her mouth, willing her to stay still. My heart slammed so hard I swore he'd hear it, each thud a countdown to disaster. The duffel stuffed with his cash sat inches away, unzipped, a glaring confession if he looked down. The painting hung crooked, another giveaway, and his footsteps stopped, too close, the leather of his shoes creaking as he shifted. "Something's off," he growled, his voice low, suspicious, and I felt Tiffany's nails dig into my arm, her panic mirroring mine. Then, disaster. The desk phone rang, a shrill scream in the quiet, and Richard cursed, stepping around to grab it. His knee brushed the duffel, and I saw it tip, a stack of bills spilling out like blood on the floor. Time slowed. His eyes dropped, locked on the cash, then flicked to the safe. The painting. Us. "What the fuck?" he roared, yanking the desk chair back and exposing us. Crouched, caught, guilty as sin. Tiffany gasped, scrambling to her feet, but I was faster, lunging up, fists clenched, ready to fight. "Richard, wait," she started, but he was on me, his hand slamming into my chest, pinning me against the wall with a strength I didn't expect from his polished frame. "You little shit," he snarled, his face inches from mine, spit flecking my cheek. "Stealing from me? With her?" His fist cracked across my jaw, a burst of pain exploding in my skull, and I staggered, tasting blood. Tiffany screamed, grabbing his arm. "Stop it, Richard!" But he shoved her back, hard, sending her crashing into the desk. She hit the edge with a cry, clutching her side, and rage flared through me, drowning the pain. I swung at him, catching his shoulder, but he was a wall. Years of pent-up fury in every move. He grabbed my throat, slamming me to the floor, his knee digging into my chest. "You think you can take what's mine?" he hissed, his grip tightening until black spots danced in my vision. Tiffany lunged at him, clawing at his back, but he spun, backhanding her across the face. She fell, her cheek red, tears streaking her mascara, and I thrashed under him, helpless, choking. "Enough!" he bellowed, releasing me to tower over us both, his chest heaving, his eyes wild with a fury I'd never seen. I coughed, dragging air into my lungs, crawling to Tiffany as she clutched her face, her sobs quiet but piercing. "You're done," he said, his voice dropping to a deadly calm that was worse than the shouting. "Both of you." He stepped back, pulling his phone from his pocket. Not the one he'd come for, but another, sleek and black. "You think I'm blind?" he said, tapping the screen, a smirk twisting his lips. "I've known something was up for weeks. You two sneaking around, fucking under my roof like I wouldn't notice." My stomach sank as he turned the phone toward us, the screen lighting up with grainy footage, us unmistakable, tangled together on the living room couch that first night. Her moans, my groans, every thrust captured in stark detail, the camera hidden somewhere we'd never thought to look. Tiffany's hand flew to her mouth, a strangled "no" escaping as her face drained of color. "Hidden cams," Richard said, his tone dripping with venom. "Installed after the last time some bastard tried to rob me. Caught more than I bargained for, didn't I?" He stepped closer, looming over Tiffany as she shrank back, her bravado gone. "You're a slut, and he's a traitor. And this?" He waved the phone. "This goes viral tomorrow. Twitter, Instagram, every corner of the internet. Your little fitness empire, your perfect image, ruined. One click, and the world sees you for the whore you are." She shook her head, tears streaming. "Richard, please, no, you can't." But he cut her off with a laugh, cold and cruel. "Oh, I can. And I will." He turned to me, still sprawled on the floor, blood trickling from my lip. "And you, Ethan? You're out. No money, no name, nothing. I'll make sure every door slams in your face. But first..." He grabbed the duffel, kicking it open wider, the cash spilling across the rug. "You watch this burn." He pulled a lighter from his desk, flicking it on, the flame dancing as he held it over the bills. I lunged, but he stomped my hand, grinding his heel into my fingers until I yelled, the pain white hot. Tiffany sobbed, reaching for me, but he yanked her back by her hair, forcing her to her knees. "Watch!" he snarled, dropping the lighter. The cash caught, flames licking up, the smell of burning paper choking the air as our escape went up in smoke. He stood over us, the fire reflecting in his eyes, a king reclaiming his throne. "You thought you could play me?" he said, his voice a low growl. "I own you, both of you. Try to run, and this video's the least of your worries." The flames crackled, the room spinning as Tiffany clung to me, her body shaking, my hand throbbing, our plan, our future, reduced to ash. We were trapped, beaten, and he held the ultimate weapon. One wrong move and he'd destroy her life, my life, everything, with a single upload. The war we'd started had turned on us, and now we were at his mercy, or his malice. The office reeked of scorched money and defeat, the last embers of our $500,000 dream flickering out on the rug. Richard loomed over us, his phone still glowing with that damning video, his smirk a blade twisting in my gut. Tiffany's sobs had quieted to a trembling silence, her hand clutching mine, her cheek still red from his slap. My jaw throbbed, my crushed fingers pulsed with pain. But worse was the weight of his words. "I own you," sinking in like poison. He'd won, or so he thought. "Get up," he snapped, kicking the empty duffel toward me. "You're sleeping in the guest wing tonight, separate. Tomorrow, you're gone, Ethan. And you..." He grabbed Tiffany's chin, forcing her to look at him. "You'll smile for the cameras at my side, or this hits the web by noon. Understand?" She nodded, her eyes hollow, and he shoved her away, stalking out with a final, "Clean this mess up." The door slammed, leaving us in the wreckage, ash, blood, and a ticking clock. I pulled Tiffany to me, her body limp against mine, her breath hitching. "We're fucked," she whispered, her voice raw. "He's got us, Ethan. He'll ruin me." I wiped the tears from her cheek, my mind racing despite the pain. "Not yet," I said, low and fierce. "He thinks he's broken us, but he's wrong. We're not done." She looked up, confusion cutting through her despair. "What are you talking about? The money's gone, that video..." "He's not the only one with leverage," I cut in, a plan sparking through the haze. "We fight dirty too." I helped her up, wincing as my hand screamed in protest, and we stumbled to my room, locking the door. "Listen," I said, pacing, adrenaline overriding the ache. He's got that footage, but he's not untouchable. Remember that merger he was yelling about? The one that tanked? I heard him on the phone. There's shady shit in there. Offshore accounts, tax evasion, something big. If we can get proof, we turn the tables. Tiffany's eyes widened, a flicker of her old fire returning. His laptop, she said, sitting up straighter. He keeps everything on it. Passwords, files, all of it. It's in his bedroom safe, smaller one. Code's his birthday, 03-15-68. I've seen him use it. It was a long shot, but it was something. A weapon to wield against his blackmail. Tonight, I said. He's probably drunk by now, passed out. We get in, get the laptop, find what we need. She nodded, wiping her face, resolve hardening her features. And if he catches us again? I smirked, tasting blood on my lip. Then we go down swinging. We waited until 2 a.m., the house a tomb of silence. Richard's snores rumbled faintly from his room as we crept down the hall, Tiffany in her hoodie, me with a flashlight and a pocket knife. Crude, but it'd do. She eased his door open, the hinges mercifully quiet. And there he was, sprawled on the bed, an empty scotch bottle on the nightstand. Out cold. The safe was in the closet, a sleek black box behind his suits. She punched in 03-15-68, her hand steady now, and it clicked open. Laptop, a USB drive, a stack of papers. Jackpot. We grabbed it all, slipping back to my room, hearts pounding. I booted the laptop. Password was King Richard, arrogant prick, and dug in. Files upon files, shell companies, wire transfers to the Caymans, emails with lawyers about discreet adjustments, enough to bury him with the IRS, maybe even the feds. Tiffany scrolled beside me, her breath catching. Look at this, she said, pointing to a folder labeled TP Insurance, her initials. Inside, a draft prenup amendment cutting her out completely, dated last week. He was planning to ditch me, she whispered, fury replacing fear. Before we even... Perfect, I said, copying everything to the USB. He wants to play dirty? We've got him by the balls. But time was short. Dawn was creeping closer, and he'd wake soon. We need to move, I said, shoving the laptop into my bag. Take this to a lawyer, a reporter, someone, before he can upload that video. She nodded, grabbing her phone, but then, thud. Footsteps. Heavy, uneven, coming our way. He's up, she hissed, panic flaring again. The doorknob rattled, then banged, locked, but not for long. Ethan? Richard's voice, slurred but furious, cut through the wood. Open this fucking door. My eyes darted to the window, second floor, a drop but doable. Go, I said, shoving the bag at Tiffany. Out the window now, I'll hold him off. She hesitated, eyes wide, but I kissed her, hard and quick. Run, I'll catch up. She climbed out, bag slung over her shoulder, disappearing into the dark as the door splintered under Richard's shoulder. He burst in, red-faced, reeking of booze, a golf club in hand. You think you can hide? He roared, swinging wild. I ducked, the club smashing my lamp, and tackled him. Pain be damned. We hit the floor, a tangle of fists and curses, but I was younger, faster, landed a punch to his gut, then his jaw, buying seconds. I bolted for the window, leaping as he staggered up, his bellow chasing me into the night. I hit the grass hard, rolling, my hands screaming, but Tiffany was there, pulling me up. Car, she gasped, and we ran, keys in her pocket, headlights off, peeling out as his shouts faded behind us. We had the evidence, the fight, each other. But he had that video, and morning was coming fast. The race was on. Expose him before he exposed us, or watch our world burn first. The night swallowed us as we tore down the winding driveway. Tiffany's foot heavy on the gas, the stolen Mercedes roaring beneath us. The laptop and USB bounced in the bag between my legs, our only weapon against Richard's wrath. His shouts still echoed in my ears, but the mansion's lights were shrinking in the rear view. Freedom, maybe, if we could just make it to the highway. Faster, I urged, my voice tight, my crushed hand throbbing as I gripped the seat. She nodded, knuckles white on the wheel, but then headlights flared behind us, blinding, too close. He's coming, she gasped, swerving as a black SUV, his Escalade gained, its engine a growl cutting through the dark. The chase was relentless. He rammed us, metal screeching, the car lurching as Tiffany fought to keep control. "Hold on!" she yelled, taking a sharp turn onto a back road, tires squealing. But he was a shadow that wouldn't shake, ruthless, unyielding. I twisted, seeing his face through the windshield. A mask of fury lit by the dash, his hands steady on the wheel like a hunter closing in. "There!" I shouted, spotting a narrow dirt path, a chance to lose him. She yanked the wheel, branches clawing the car, but the Escalade followed, unstoppable. Its bumper kissing ours again, harder. The jolt threw me forward, the bag sliding, and I cursed, clutching it tight. We hit a clearing, the road widening, and for a second, I thought we'd made it, until blue lights flashed ahead. Cops, 2 cruisers, blocking the path, sirens silent but lethal. "No!" Tiffany breathed, slamming the brakes, the car skidding to a stop. Richard's SUV screeched up behind, boxing us in, and he stepped out, calm now, triumphant, as officers approached, guns drawn. "Out!" one barked, and I realized his money, his connections. He'd called them, turned this into his trap. Doors yanked open, hands on us, me dragged from the passenger side. Tiffany pulled from the driver's seat, her cries sharp as they cuffed her. "You can't," I started, but a baton cracked my ribs, dropping me to my knees. The air punched out of me. Richard loomed, his voice ice. "You stole from me, attacked me, thought you'd win. You're wrong." He nodded to the cops, his puppets, and they hauled me up, shoving me toward a cruiser as Tiffany screamed my name, her wrists bound, her hoodie torn. He didn't kill us, that'd be too easy. Instead, he dismantled us, piece by piece. In hours, I was on a bus, handcuffed, escorted by a private security goon he'd hired. A one-way ticket to nowhere. Some shithole town in the Midwest. "You're gone, Ethan," he'd said at the station, his eyes glinting. "Step foot in LA again, and I'll have you locked up for life. Assault, theft, take your pick. You'll never see her again." And the laptop, the USB, gone. Confiscated as evidence. His influence burying it all. I was erased. A ghost with no money, no fight. Just a broken hand and a memory of her fading in the distance. Tiffany's fate was a descent into a nightmare far worse than anything I could have imagined. Richard didn't just take her back. He claimed her like a trophy snatched from the jaws of rebellion, only to twist her into a prisoner of his own design. The moment he dragged her back to that sprawling, soulless mansion, he stripped her bare, not just of her clothes, but of everything that made her her. Her phone, her lifeline to the outside world, was smashed in front of her, the screen cracking under his heel as he sneered, "You won't need this anymore." Her freedom vanished with the slam of the mansion's gates, every door locked, every window watched by his security goons, and her fire, that wild, untamed spark I'd fallen for, was snuffed out, crushed under his relentless control until she was his again, a shadow of the woman who'd dared to defy him. But he didn't stop at reclaiming her as his wife. No, that was too simple for a man like Richard. He forced her into a role far uglier, a perfect hollow shell of a spouse by day, smiling at his side for the cameras at his galas, her arm looped through his as if nothing had changed. By night, it was worse, a sick, twisted punishment that turned my stomach when I heard the details later. Through a burner phone, a shaky voice, some ex-staffer who'd fled his employ, whispered the truth to me, risking everything to get word out. He threw parties, lavish affairs for his elite cronies, business tycoons, politicians, leering old men with fat wallets. And Tiffany was the centerpiece. She poured their drinks, her hands trembling as she filled crystal glasses with top-shelf scotch, her forced smile tight and brittle, lips painted red to hide the grit of her teeth. Richard dressed her for it, picking outfits that left nothing to the imagination. Slinky dresses with plunging necklines, skirts so short they barely covered her, lingerie masquerading as evening wear. Her body, once her pride, was now his exhibit, paraded for their amusement, her curves on display as they ogled and laughed, their hands brushing too close when he wasn't looking. Her spirit was caged, locked behind those dead green eyes. The light I'd loved extinguished under layers of mascara and shame. She moved like a marionette, every step choreographed by his commands, every laugh a hollow echo he demanded she perform. And he filmed it all. Every moment of her degradation captured on hidden cameras, the same kind that had caught us. The lens zoomed in on her pouring wine with a shaking hand, on the way she flinched when a guest's fingers grazed her thigh, on the forced giggles that cracked mid-sentence, her humiliation preserved in high definition. Then, true to his venomous promise, he unleashed it. One morning, with a single click from his office, he uploaded the footage to the internet, a curated montage of her lowest moments, titled with cruel precision. The headlines erupted like bombs. Fitness queens fall, from glam to shame, splashed across tabloid sites. The videos, her serving him, bowing to strangers, a puppet in his cruel theater, spreading like wildfire across Twitter, TikTok, and every dark corner of the web. The clips went viral in hours, racking up millions of views, comments flooding in like a tidal wave of venom. What a slut. From influencer to servant, pathetic. She deserves it. Her former fans, the ones who'd adored her workout vids and glowing selfies, turned into vultures, picking at her carcass with glee, their likes and shares hammering nails into her coffin. The internet didn't just watch her fall, it feasted on it. Her brand, years of sweat, her fitness empire built on confidence and grit, collapsed overnight. Sponsors dropped her, contracts voided, her name scrubbed from every platform she'd ruled. Her dignity, her identity, her life, all gone, ashes scattered in the digital wind. Richard sat back, untouchable, his empire stronger than ever, his revenge a masterpiece of cruelty. He'd turned her into his forever, his broken doll, a living trophy of his dominance, bound to serve him and his lecherous guests until she was nothing but a shell. The videos played on loop in my mind, a torment I couldn't escape, knowing she was trapped there, her soul crushed, while I rotted in exile, powerless to save her. Me? I vanished. A nobody in a nowhere town, haunted by her screams. My failure, the taste of her I'd never feel again. Richard won. Not with bullets, but with chains and a click. He didn't just beat us, he erased us, and the world watched, hungry for the ruin,